Welcome to my channel.
I am Lisa.
And I am Eric. Whether you're a student, a professional, or just someone who loves learning English, this podcast is for you.
So let's get started and make English simple and enjoyable together. What are the words today, Eric?
The first word today is odd. Then we will continue with to sneak and stick to, then a long way to go. And the final one is make a long story short.
Okay, Eric, let's start with the first word.
The first word is odd.
Odd.
Odd. Odd has two main meanings. First, it can mean strange or unusual. Second, it can refer to numbers that can't be divided evenly by 2. We'll focus on the first meaning, strange or unusual. Now, let me give an example sentence. It was odd to see snow in summer.
Good example. It means that seeing snow in summer is strange or unusual because it doesn't normally snow in that season.
Exactly. Can you give us another example, Lisa?
Sure, here's my example. The old house made odd noises at night.
Great one. It means that the noises from the old house were strange or unusual, probably a bit scary or unexpected.
Now, let's talk about how to use this word. Odd is an adjective, so we use it to describe nouns. We can say an odd person or an odd situation.
That's right. And remember, we don't change the form of odd. We don't say odder or oddest.
Good point, Eric. Now, let's listen to a short dialogue using our word odd.
Hey, Sarah, did you see that man with the purple hair?
Yes, I did. It looked a bit odd, didn't it?
I thought so too. And did you notice his odd shoes? One was red and one was blue.
Wow, that is odd. But you know what? I kind of like it when people dress in odd ways.
Really?
I guess it does make life more interesting.
Tom and Sarah used our word odd several times.
Yes, they did. Eric, have you ever seen someone dressed in an odd way?
Yes, I have. Once I saw a man wearing a suit made entirely of newspapers. It was very odd.
That does sound odd. Did you think it was funny or strange?
I think it was strange, but also creative. Have you ever done anything that others might think is odd, Lisa?
Well, I once dyed my hair green for a day. My friends thought it was very odd.
Green hair? That is odd. Did you like it?
Yes, I did. It was fun to do something odd for a change. Do you think you would ever do something odd like that?
Maybe. I think it's good to be a little odd sometimes. It makes life more fun.
I agree. Being odd can be a good thing. It means you're unique.
That's true. Well, that's all we have time for with our word odd. Let's move on to our next word.
Sounds good, Eric. I wonder if our next word will be as odd as this one.
Don't worry, it's not an odd word.
Okay, let's proceed then.
The next word is to sneak.
To sneak.
To sneak. When someone sneaks, they move quietly and secretly to avoid being noticed. Sneaking is usually done when someone wants to do something without others knowing or to surprise someone. For example, she tried to sneak into the house without waking up her parents.
This sentence means that she attempted to enter the house quietly and without waking her parents up.
That's true. Now, let's give another example sentence. He sneaked chocolates from the jar when no one was looking. This example shows that he enjoys taking chocolates secretly when no one is around to see.
That's right. Now, let's listen to a short dialogue using our word sneak.
Tommy, did you eat the cookies I baked for tomorrow?
No, Mom, I didn't touch them.
Are you sure? I saw you sneaking into the kitchen earlier.
Well, Okay, I sneaked in and took just one cookie. I'm sorry.
That was a nice dialogue, Eric. What do you think about Tommy's situation?
I think Tommy tried to hide that he took a cookie, but his mom caught him. It's not good to sneak around and then lie about it.
You're right. Have you ever sneaked somewhere, Eric?
Well, when I was a kid, I once sneaked downstairs to find out what there were.
What happened then?
Nothing. I fell asleep waiting, and my parents found me in the morning. What about you, Lisa? Have you ever sneaked somewhere?
Yes, I have. I once sneaked into my sister's room to borrow her sweater without asking.
Oh, did she find out?
Yes, she did, and she wasn't happy. I learned it's better to ask first than to sneak around.
That's a good lesson. I think our listeners can learn from this too.
Absolutely. Remember, listeners, to sneak means to move quietly and secretly, but it's usually better to be open and honest.
Well said, Lisa. We hope this explanation and conversation help our listeners understand and use the word sneak correctly.
Yes, and remember, it's okay to use this word when telling stories or playing games, but in real life, it's better not to sneak around.
Great point, Lisa. Shall we move on to our next word?
Yes, please.
The next word is stick to.
Stick to.
Stick to is a phrasal verb. It means to continue doing something despite difficulties or to follow a plan or rule.
It's often used when talking about habits, decisions, or commitments.
That's true, Lisa. Let me give an example. I'm trying to stick to my diet, so I won't eat any chocolate today. It means that I'm making an effort to follow my diet plan and not break the rules.
Good example. Here's another one. You should stick to your study schedule if you want to pass the exam. It means that you should continue following your study plan without changing it.
Now, let's talk about how to use this phrase. We usually use stick to followed by a noun or a gerund, verb plus ing. For example, stick to the plan or stick to eating healthy.
That's a helpful tip, Eric. Let's hear a short dialogue using this phrase.
How's your New Year's resolution going, Tom?
It's hard to stick to my exercise plan, Mom. I often feel too tired after work.
I understand, but try to stick to it. Maybe you can exercise in the morning instead?
That's a good idea. I'll try to stick to morning workouts and see if it helps.
That was a nice dialogue, Lisa.
I think so, Eric. Now, let's talk about the dialogue. What do you think about Tom's situation?
I think Tom is having trouble keeping his New Year's resolution. It's not easy to stick to new habits.
You're right. Have you ever made a New Year's resolution, Eric?
Yes, I have. Last year, I decided to stick to reading one book every month.
That's interesting. Did you manage to stick to your plan?
Mostly, yes, but sometimes it was hard to find time to read. What about you, Lisa? Do you have any habits you try to stick to?
Well, I try to stick to drinking 6 glasses of water every day. It's good for health, but I often forget.
That's a good habit to have. How did you remind yourself to drink water?
I used a water bottle with marks on it. It helped me stick to my goal. Make a long, short story, I could not stick to it.
I see. It's important to stick to good habits.
Absolutely. Yes, and we encourage our listeners to stick to learning English. It takes time, but it's worth it.
Well said, Lisa.
Okay, let's move on to our next word. What's the next word, Eric?
The next word is a long way to go.
A long way to go.
A long way to go. It is an idiom. It means there's still a lot of work or progress to be made before reaching a goal.
That's right, Eric. It's used when someone needs to improve a lot or when a task will take a long time to finish.
Let me give an example. John is learning to play the guitar, but he has a long way to go before he can perform on stage. It means that John needs to practice a lot more before he's good enough to play in front of an audience.
Good example. Here's another one. Our team has a long way to go to win the championship. It means that our team needs to improve a lot and work hard to become good enough to win.
That's a good example, Lisa. Let's hear a short dialogue using this phrase.
How's your English study going, Sarah?
It's okay, but I have a long way to go before I can speak fluently.
Don't worry. Learning a language takes time. We all had a long way to go when we started.
Thanks, Tom. That makes me feel better.
I liked how they used the phrase twice. What do you think about Sarah's situation, Eric?
I think Sarah feels a bit worried about her English. She knows she needs to improve a lot.
Yes, that's right. But Tom is very kind. He tells Sarah not to worry. Do you think that's good advice?
I do. Learning takes time, and it's normal to feel like you have a long way to go when you start something new.
I agree. Have you ever felt like you had a long way to go with something, Eric?
Yes, I have. I had a long way to go when I started learning to cook. My first meals were not very good.
Oh, I can imagine. But now you're a good cook now, right?
I'm much better now, thanks. It just took time and practice. What about you, Lisa?
Well, I'm learning to play tennis. I still have a long way to go before I can play well, but I'm enjoying the process.
That's great, Lisa. Remember, it's okay to have a long way to go. The important thing is to keep trying and learning.
You're right, Eric. Thank you for that reminder. I think our listeners can learn from this too.
Absolutely. And remember, everyone has a long way to go when they start learning something new. It's part of the journey.
Okay, Eric. We have reached our last word today. What is the last word?
The last word is make a long story short.
Make a long story short.
Make a long story short. This idiom is used when you want to give the main point of a story without all the details. It means you are summarizing something to keep it brief. For example, I had a flat tire, missed the bus, and had to walk home. To make a long story short, it was a tough day.
It means that many things happened, but the main point is that it was a tough day.
Exactly. Here's another example. He lost his job, his car broke down, and to make a long story short, he had a lot of bad luck that week. This means that many bad things happened, but the main point is that he had a lot of bad luck.
Now, let's talk about how to use make a long story short in sentences. We usually use it at the beginning or in the middle of a sentence.
Additionally, sometimes people say long story short, which means the same thing. For example, long story short, we decided not to go on the trip.
Good point. Now, let's move on to a dialogue using the phrase make a long story short. The characters are Emma and Jake. They are talking in a cafe.
So, what happened yesterday?
Well, to make a long story short, I missed my flight and had to stay at the airport all night.
Oh no! Why did you miss your flight?
I was stuck in traffic for hours. I forgot my key at home. To make a long story short, it was a terrible day.
Now, let's have a casual conversation about the dialogue. Lisa, what do you think about the phrase make a long story short?
I think it's a very useful phrase. It helps you get to the main point quickly without telling every detail.
Yes, exactly. And in the dialogue, Emma and Jake used it to summarize a long story. Do you think using make a long story short makes their conversation clearer?
Definitely. It shows that they are giving the important part of the story without going into too many details. It makes the conversation more efficient.
I agree. It's especially helpful when you don't want to go into too many details. Do you know any other phrases that mean the same as make a long story short?
Yes, Phrases like in short and to sum up have similar meanings. For example, in short, we missed the plane.
Good example. Okay, we have reached the end of today's episode. That's it for today's episode.
Thank you for listening to Simply Explained English. We hope you learned something new today.
Don't forget to subscribe and like our videos. See you next time.
Bye-bye. The podcast where we make learning English easy and fun. I am Lisa.
And I am Eric. In each episode, we explain common English words and phrases in simple language.
So let's start and make English simple together. Okay, what are the words today, Eric?
The first word today is clumsy. Then we will continue with as if and as for, then as of, and the final one is from scratch.
Let's start with the first word, Eric.
The first word today is clumsy.
Clumsy.
Clumsy is an adjective we use to describe someone who often drops things, falls or bumps into things. It can also describe actions that are done without skill or grace. For example, John is so clumsy that he often spills his drink.
Good example. It means that John frequently drops or spills his drink because he's not very careful or coordinated.
Exactly. Now, Lisa, can you give us another example?
Sure. Here's my example. The clumsy waiter dropped a tray of glasses. It means that the waiter wasn't careful or skillful, and as a result, he dropped the tray with glasses on it.
That's right. Clumsy is an adjective, so we use it to describe people or actions like a clumsy person or clumsy movements. For example, he is clumsy or it was a clumsy movement.
Good point, Eric. Now let's listen to a short dialogue using our word clumsy.
Oh no! I just broke another plate!
Don't worry, Emma, it happens to everyone sometimes.
But I'm always so clumsy in the kitchen. I feel bad about it.
You're not that clumsy, you're just learning. I used to be really clumsy when I started cooking too.
In the dialogue, Emma and Jack used the word clumsy several times.
Yes, they did. Eric, have you ever felt clumsy?
Oh yes, many times. I'm quite clumsy when I try to dance. I always step on people's feet.
Really? That's funny. I'm clumsy too, especially in the morning before I'm fully awake.
Oh, what happens when you're clumsy in the morning, Lisa?
Well, sometimes I bump into furniture or drop my toothbrush. How about you? When are you most clumsy, Eric?
I'm most clumsy when I'm in a hurry. I often drop things or forget important items.
I understand that. Being in a hurry can make anyone clumsy. Do you think being clumsy is always bad?
Not always. Sometimes it can be funny and it teaches us to laugh at ourselves.
That's a good point. I think everyone is clumsy sometimes, and that's okay.
Exactly. We shouldn't feel bad about being clumsy. It's just part of being human.
Well said, Eric. That's all we have time for with our word, clumsy. Let's move on to our next word.
The next word is as if.
As if.
It's an idiom. This idiom is used to describe something that appears to be true but may not be, or to make comparisons.
That's right, Eric. We use as if when we want to say that something seems something else.
Let me give an example. He acts as if he knows everything. It means that he behaves in a way that makes it seem like he knows everything, but he probably doesn't really know everything.
Here's another one. She danced as if no one was watching. It means that she danced freely, like she didn't care if people saw her.
Good example. Now, let's talk about how to use this phrase. As if is usually followed by a clause, which is a group of words with a subject and a verb. For example, as if it were summer, or as if she had won the lottery.
That's helpful, Eric. Let's hear a short dialogue using this phrase.
Hey Sarah, why are you dressed so nicely today?
I have a job interview. I want to look as if I already work there.
That's smart, and you're walking so confidently as if you've already got the job.
Thanks, Tom. I hope that confidence helps me in the interview.
I liked how they used as if twice.
Me too, Eric. What do you think about Sarah's approach?
I think Sarah is smart. She's trying to look and act like she fits the job already.
You're right. Have you ever acted as if for something, Eric?
Yes, I have. When I first started teaching, I acted as if. I was very confident, even though I was nervous.
That's a good example, Eric. Did it help you?
Yes, it did. After a while, I really became confident. What about you, Lisa? Have you used as if in real life?
Yes, I have. Last week, I went to a party where I didn't know anyone. I acted as if I was outgoing and made new friends quickly.
That's a great way to use it.
Yes. I felt more comfortable and met nice people.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, we hope this explanation and conversation help our listeners understand and use the phrase as if correctly.
Definitely. And remember, even if you're not sure, you can speak as if you're confident in your English. It will help you improve.
Great point, Lisa. Shall we move on to our next word?
Sure, Eric. What is the next word?
The next word is as for.
As for.
As for, an idiom. This idiom is used to introduce a new topic or to refer to a different person or thing in a conversation. We use as for when we want to change the subject or talk about something else. For example, I like pizza and pasta. As for dessert, I prefer ice cream. It means that I'm changing the topic from main dishes to dessert and talking about what I like for dessert.
Good explanation. Here's another one. Tom is going to the beach. As for me, I'm staying home. It means that I'm now talking about what I'm doing, which is different from what Tom is doing.
Now, let's talk about how to use this phrase. As for is usually followed by a noun or pronoun. For example, as for him or as for the weather.
That's helpful, Eric. Let's hear a short dialogue using this phrase.
Kids, what do you want for dinner?
I like chicken, Mom.
As for me, I'd prefer pasta. Okay. And as for dessert, how about some fruit?
That was a nice dialogue, Lisa.
Yes. What do you think about how the family is deciding on dinner, Eric?
I think it's good that everyone gets to say what they want. The mother uses as for to ask about dessert separately.
You're right. Do you use as for when talking about food choices, Eric?
Yes, I do. When I go to restaurants with friends, I sometimes say, as for me, I'll have the fish.
That's a good way to use it. Do you use it in other situations too?
Sometimes, like when we're planning a trip, I might say, as for the hotel, I prefer one close to the beach. What about you, Lisa?
I use it when I'm shopping with friends. I might say, as for shoes, I like these red ones.
That's a great example. I think our listeners can learn from this too.
Absolutely. Remember, listeners, you can use as for to change the topic or talk about something else.
Yes, and it's a polite way to give your opinion or talk about something different in a conversation.
Well said, Eric. We hope this explanation and conversation help our listeners understand and use the phrase as for correctly.
Definitely. And remember, using phrases like as for can make your English sound more natural and fluent.
Great point, Eric. Okay, let's move on to the next word.
The next word is as of.
As of.
As of is an idiom used to indicate a specific time or date when something begins or changes. Here's an example sentence. As of next week, the new rules will be in effect.
It means that, starting next week, the new rules will be in effect.
Here's another example. As of today, we have a new manager.
It means that, starting today, there is a new manager.
Now, let's briefly discuss some grammar related to as of. This phrase is used before a specific time or date to indicate when something starts or changes. For example, as of January 1st, or as of now.
Great. Now, let's have a short dialogue using the phrase as of. In this dialogue, we'll have two co-workers, Steve and Karen, talking about changes at their office.
Did you hear about the new work schedule?
Yes, as of Monday, we will start at 9 a.m. instead of 8 a.m.
That sounds good to me. As of now, I can get an extra hour of sleep.
Me too. I think everyone will appreciate the extra time in the morning.
Now, let's talk about our dialogue. Lisa, what do you think about the changes in Steve and Karen's work schedule?
Based on the dialogue, starting Monday, they will begin work at 9 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. They both seem happy about the extra hour of sleep.
And also, they seem pleased with the change, and it looks like the new schedule will be better for them. Have you ever experienced a change that started as of a specific time, Lisa?
Yes, my gym introduced new classes as of last month, which I've been enjoying. How about you, Eric?
As of last week, a new project manager started to work at work. Do you think using as of helps to clarify when changes take place?
Yes, it clearly shows when something starts, making communication clearer. What do you think?
I agree. It's an effective way to specify timing. Do you know any other phrases that mean the same as of?
Yes, phrases like starting from and beginning have similar meanings. Anything else you want to add about our phrase today?
Just remember that as of is used to indicate a specific time or date when something begins or changes. It's a useful phrase for clear communication.
It's a good summary, Eric. Okay, we have reached the last word of today. What is the last word today, Eric?
The last word is from scratch.
From scratch.
This idiom means to make or do something from the beginning without using anything that was prepared before.
That's right, Eric. We often use from scratch when talking about cooking or creating something new.
Let me give an example. My grandmother makes her cakes from scratch. It means that she doesn't use a cake mix or pre-made ingredients. She starts with basic ingredients like flour, sugar, and eggs.
Good example. Here's another one. We built our tree house from scratch. It means that we didn't use a kit or pre-made parts. We started with just wood and tools and made everything ourselves.
Now, let's talk about how to use this phrase. From scratch usually comes at the end of a sentence or after a verb. For example, she learned to play guitar from scratch, or they started the business from scratch.
Okay, Eric, let's hear a short dialogue using this phrase.
Wow, Sarah, this soup is delicious. Did you make it from scratch?
Yes, I did. I love cooking from scratch whenever I have time.
That's impressive. I usually just heat up canned soup.
You should try cooking from scratch sometime. It's fun and often healthier.
That was a nice dialogue, Lisa. I liked how they used from scratch 3 times.
Me too, Eric. Now, let's talk about the dialogue. What do you think about Sarah's cooking?
I think Sarah enjoys cooking and takes pride in making things from scratch. It seems like she thinks it's better than using pre-made food.
You're right. Do you ever cook from scratch, Eric?
Sometimes, yes. I make pancakes from scratch on weekends. It's not too hard, and they taste better than the mix.
That sounds yummy. What ingredients do you use?
Just flour, eggs, milk, and a little sugar. What about you, Lisa? Do you make anything from scratch?
I like to make pizza from scratch. I make the dough and sauce myself.
Wow, that sounds delicious. Is it difficult to make pizza dough from scratch?
It takes some practice, but it's not too hard. And it's fun to choose your own toppings.
I think our listeners can learn from this too. Making things from scratch can be rewarding.
Absolutely. Remember, listeners, from scratch means starting from the beginning with basic ingredients or materials.
Yes, and while it might take more time, making things from scratch can be a great way to learn new skills.
Well said, Eric. We hope this explanation and conversation help our listeners understand and use the phrase from scratch correctly.
Definitely. And remember, whether it's cooking, crafting, or learning English, sometimes starting from scratch is the best way to really understand something.
Great point, Eric. All right, that's all for today's episode of Simply Explained English. We hope you found it helpful and fun.
Please subscribe and like the video and practice the words of today.
Thanks for listening. Join us next time for more simple explanations of English words and phrases.
Until then, keep practicing and keep learning. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.